Smith. Some of you know that I'm the Dean of the School of Fashion and Textiles. So our next guest this evening has a very special place in our hearts. Stephen Jones is one of us. I first met Stephen, you'll find this really bizarre. I first met Stephen as we both moved into our halls of residence together with our mothers on anticipating our first days as fashion students at St Martin's as it was then. So since those early days, Stephen's creations have graced the heads of stars such as Boy George, Kylie, Take That, Beyonce and Dita. And he has collaborated with couture houses including Giles Deacon, Donna Karan, Marc Jacobs, Walter van Beirendonck, Vivienne Westwood, John Gaultier, and of course John Galliano and Dior. Stephen creates design forms that range from the whimsical, the witty, the refined, to the alluringly seductive. And they always captivate the mood of the moment. They're exquisitely crafted, using materials in a really inspiring and often quite radical fashion. His designs appear everywhere, from magazine covers and pop videos to royal ascot for weddings, garden parties, and are represented currently in permanent collections at the V&A, Louvre, Fashion Institute, FIT in New York, and Brooklyn Museum, and the Kyoto Costume Institute in Japan. And this year, Stephen's designs can be viewed at the fabulous V&A exhibition, Hats, the Anthology by Stephen Jones, which has just opened early in the autumn in New York, and at the Museo Salvatore Ferragamo in Florence, and very recently at Hussein Chalayan exhibition in Paris at Les Arts Décoratifs. And Stephen Jones Millinery celebrated its 30th year anniversary last year, same year as Stephen received his OBE in recognition of his extraordinary contribution to fashion. So in the words of Hamish Bowles of Vogue USA, Jones is a deft couturier who can draw whimsy from a hat. Steeped in couture lure and craft, he nevertheless propels his art into the future with ceaseless innovation and invention and a thistledown touch. And his genius is to enhance the mystery, the allure and the wit of the wearer. Very, very special. So I have great pleasure in introducing Stephen to you. Special evening because Stephen's going to be in conversation with Louise, Yetan and Imogen, who are students from our FCP course. So, welcome to Stephen.
Thank you so much for being here with us tonight. A pleasure to welcome you through the doors of St Martin's and our new home at King's Cross. What do you make of the building?
It's amazing. It's fantastic to see. I remember old St Martin's extremely well. And even then, it was slightly falling apart. It was even more falling apart when I taught there last year. So I'm quite pleased to be here. But it's never about the building; it's about the students.
So going back to you, you grew up near Liverpool. How did you become aware of Central St Martin's or St Martin's as a perspective?
Yeah, well, and it's terrible because I always call it St Martin's. That was Central St Martin's. Everybody always thinks it rightly. But anyway, I was not aware of St Martin's, and basically, I looked at all the different London colleges, and I thought the Piccadilly Circus was like the centre of London, and I worked out which college was closest to Piccadilly Circus, and then at that time they only offered 4 courses, which were painting, sculpture, fashion, and graphics, and I knew I couldn't be a painter or a sculptor. Whereas I like graphics, I just knew I was too messy. And I love fashion, so it wasn't until I was 4 years old when I was and I really found that out later on. But even then, St Martin's had a fantastic reputation in fashion, and even around the world, St Martin's was known as the creative place to be. And other colleges like Kingston turned out fantastic students who were technically fabulous and went to work in Italy because they had a real understanding of fabrics. That's how it was for me.
And there were just a few boys in the class. How did that inform your experience?
It was strange because, in fact, the two boys who were in my class were actually older, and they were mature students anyway. So it felt, I don't know, it didn't feel sort of lonely, but I was sort of slightly singled out for special attention, not necessarily in a good way. I can tell you.
Do you have a standout memory of being at St Martin's?
Sorry.
Do you have a standout memory of being at St Martin's?
I mean, I think the most fantastic thing about St Martin, I mean, of course, we were taught, and it was like the place to be. But actually, what was most exciting was my fellow students, and other people who really taught me how to walk, how to talk, how to behave, and a little bit how to design as well.
So you started in women's wear,
Yeah.
but you became a millionaire.
Yeah, because the thing was that I very much decided late during my foundation course what I was going to do. So I hadn't sewn or anything, and I really didn't know how to do anything. My tailoring tutor was a man called Peter Crown from this very grand couture house called the Chaz. And he said to me, Stephen, if you don't improve your sewing, you're really going to fall behind and you'll fail your first year. So he said, why don't you become an intern? And at that time, I didn't know of anybody else who was actually doing what we call work experience. I didn't know anybody else on my course, or really anybody else in the school, who was doing an internship. And there was an e-course went to an industry. It was a very weird dynamic, very different dynamic. So I went there one day a week and during the school holidays. But I was a tailor's sort of apprentice there. And next door to the tailoring work, there was a millinery. And I transferred from tailoring to millinery. And really sort of after the first day, I never looked back. But in fact, the head of the e-course, of course, then the head of the school, was not at all happy that I was doing millinery. So it was quite an uphill battle all the way, I have to tell you.
So it's all quite a lot of hard work. And how did you balance being a dedicated student and a prominent member of the business?
Well, I mean, I think, I was saying before about, learning almost more from your friends than your tutors. And whether you're like turning up, well, I mean, I did turn up to college on time every morning, and I went out all night. I mean, that's what you've got to learn to do. Sorry.
It must have been hugely inspirational, so did it have an influence on your design aesthetic?
Yes, it did. I mean, you're always inspired by the people around you. And the thing, I arrived at St Martin's in 1976, so that was the summer of punk. So at the time of leaving St Martin's, people talk about punk going on for years and years, in a way it did for some people, but for us it was really over and done, so it was new wave. And then the vacuum that was left by punk, that's what, when we were leaving college, that's what we really filled, and that's only, we romantics, we were interested in the past, and interested in a Billie Holiday record, or interested in Christian Dior, or interested in the past, as well as the future and the present.
How is it regarded among the men in fashion scene?
Oh, there's a huge divide between club goers and fashion people. When you went into a club, it's like, oh my God, you come from St Martin's. Oh, how dreadful. But we thought we were fantastic, so of course we sailed through with honours, and as I hope you're all doing nowadays.
What was your most outrageous outfit?
I mean, it was just a very, very extraordinary time for me, and I think for St Martin's people actually went real club goers. It was years who were slightly younger than me who actually were real club goers. So when I was in my third year, for example, I went out with a lot of the first years. So that was one of the good things that we mixed together.
What kind of stuff did you wear?
Sorry?
What kind of stuff did you wear?
What sort of stuff did I wear? All sorts. I mean, the thing was, I thought what I was wearing was terribly normal. I do remember one particular outfit when we were living at St Martin's. I got the number 19 bus, and I couldn't understand why everybody was sort of like giving me stares and spitting at me. But I was wearing rubber trousers with a transparent fluorescent green sort of ball thing on top, and like full makeup and blue hair. But I thought I looked very normal. I just thought the rest of the people were on, and I sort of continued with that attitude ever since.
That's great. Can you take us through the transition of graduating from St. Martin's to actually establishing yourself as an entrepreneur?
It all happened, in a way by chance, but I do believe you can make your own life. I went over to Paris to try and get a job as a dress designer, not a milliner, so I didn't think anybody would be interested in hats. So when I came back to England with my tail between my legs and a huge overdraft and very unsympathetic parents, I had to move out of London and I actually got a job as a truck driver, and that was for a year, but I had quite a lot of money. So I paid most of my debts off. And during that time, I continued commuting to London, and I was going to the some of these different clubs. And Steve Strange, who was the guy who ran it, said, well, because he had a day job as well. And he worked in this shop called PX, and he said, well, actually the people who own the shop have nobody in their basement, and they're interested if you'd like to have a shop in their basement. And I was just making hats for my friends at that time. And sometimes they would buy it, but more often than not, I was just giving them to them. And then, to my complete amazement, within a year of leaving college, I had my own shop. I mean, I didn't really have a business. I mean, they said, what you don't know can't kill you. I made a fantastic collection of hats on my friend's kitchen table. We had a wonderful opening party. I mean, the size of the shop was, like this big. It was tiny. And we invited 500 people, and most people turned up too. But it wasn't very great on 20 bottles of wine. But fortunately, there was a pub just down the road, and we all had some fantastic time. And the shop was very successful from day one. I mean, it also gave me a complete nervous breakdown because I was doing all that production and running the shop and going out all night. So then that was the next phase.
You collaborated with many designers, one of which was Jean-Paul Gaultier. How did that collaboration come about?
Well, the Gaultier thing happened. I mean, it was weird because when I started off, I mean, I was in a way commercially very successful. I mean, we were selling quite a lot of hats, but I wasn't getting any press. And I used to have these, I mean, it's so different to now. I remember taking like great big hat boxes up to Vogue magazine, and particular fashion editor who I showed the collection of hats to said, well, how many stockists do you have in the UK? And I said, well, just my own little shop. She said, well, until you have 5 stockists in the UK, we can't possibly feature you in Vogue magazine. Whereas nowadays, they're absolutely hungry for anything. But anyway, to get back to your question, I was sort of working by myself, and George, who's a good friend of mine, he was releasing a single from his album. Now, he'd actually released about 5 or 6 singles from his first album, but they hadn't been going at all well. And actually, he was going to get fired by the record. This is not knowledge, but he was going to be fired by the record company. But he said, no, there's this one track, which is really fantastic, and everybody will love it. And we played this to you really onto the purple, and we all went, ugh, I don't know. Anyway, he proved us all completely wrong, but in fact, I was in that video. There's a slide of me. These are just all general hats I've done. I think there's probably a slide of me in the video. And Jean-Paul Gaultier saw me in that, and that was partially inspiration for his first ever men's runway fashion show, of his first men's collection. So he asked me to be in the show, but I couldn't be in the fashion show. But a few months later, I went over to see him, and he showed me the film of the show, which was amazing. It was even pre-video, it's actually in time. And after he showed me that, he said, well, would you be interested in collaborating and doing a range of hats for my women's collection? So I said, well, yeah. And he said, well, I'm going out for lunch now. So I'll be back in about an hour and a half, and you do your sketches, some sketches on the idea of affairs, which was at Florida. And I'll come back. So that's it. Came back, went through, said yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. And that's how I started working with him. That was my first season in Paris.
Then you were suddenly in Paris.
Yeah.
How did that differ from London?
It was completely different. I mean, the thing was, at the time, I knew all about England. foreign shores were much more interesting to me. And I felt really European. I didn't feel, this was even before Eurostar was coming into the front door. I always felt European. I didn't feel particularly British. I love the fact that we're living in the modern world and we can communicate and fly around and all that. And I couldn't understand all these people, British designers who were saying, the French never come here, the Americans never come here. England's a bit of a backward. It's very different now. So I was like thrilled to be in Paris and working over there. And how is it different? Bigger, more glamorous, somehow more exciting. And at that time, and just as now, actually Paris wanted what Britain could offer, which was innovation, individuality, experimentation, saying fuck off to the establishment. So that's why, Paris was different. But, I did have friends, there was a guy who was, Alistair Blair, he was working at Dior, there was a friend of mine, Kathy Topham, who was also an assistant at Dior, various other people from St Martin's who were working there. So I did have various friends there. But say, for example, Jean-Paul Gaultier always came to London with the weekend because he found London clubs and people at St Martin's much more inspirational than you could find in Paris.
How did your collaboration with John Galliano start?
Well, it was all quite, to tell you the truth, I don't really remember how it started, because it was at a club, and it says in the Galliano book, apparently he came up to me and said, Steve, can you do hats for my final collection? And apparently I looked down my nose at him and said, not on your life, darling. I really have no memory of that whatsoever. Drink wasn't involved at all, I have to tell you. But anyway, the fashion world is incredibly small. The London fashion world is even smaller. We all know each other. And in fact, Sylvia Design found my first assistant, his first assistant, so we was always talking. But it's actually only when he went to Paris that I started to work with him. And his assistant, Stephen Robinson, who one day phoned me up and said, John would love to work with you. Would you be interested in working with him? And I was like completely over the moon because there was a sort of quirky, at that time, I'd been working for 15 years with Paul Montana, who was the most extraordinary person, disciplinarian, and I learned so much from him. But there was a side of sort of English eccentricity that was really not part of his DNA. Oh my God, that's But anyway, so working with John was fantastic, and I really felt after the first season that I'd come home, and in a way still do.
Can you talk us through your design process from inspiration to realization?
Where does inspiration come from? I always think that I just live my life and then somehow put that into a hat. And the more I have to do with it, the less good the hat is. In my head, I don't stop designing. It's funny, when you start off, you're designing all the time. When you start off in a career, you're designing all the time. And then for a very long while, you're actually running a business. And I still run a business, but actually I do design every day. I put pen to paper every day. And on the way home from here tonight, I'll have my notebook out and my sketchbook, because I actually need to sketch all the time whenever it's possible, because there's so many things to do. But there will be, I do a collection over 6 months, like a collection over 6 months, which is automotive, although very handmade, and there's diffusion pictures as well. But inspiration can come from anywhere. For example, this winter's collection is called XYZ, and then next time it's called Topsy Turvy, and that was just about putting things upside down or back to front. It's slightly inspired by Red Caribou. Autumn Winter 2012 is going to be called This Is Tomorrow. I just heard that phrase on the radio, and I love the supreme confidence of that. It was actually about an exhibition which happened in 1956. The Whitechapel Art Gallery, which was really like this postal optimism. And so it can really come from everywhere. So I sort of get an idea, and then I sketch off, and I go away to like a friend's house and sketch, and also twirl, and I have a little miniature head, which is what I take everywhere. I take with me, and I make like the twirls, and then photograph them, email them back. I'm quite technically, well, vaguely okay. And that's how collection is born. And then twirl and retwirl and retwirl and retwirl, and it's all very scheduled because, you know, I work in England and I work in France. So, say for example, today I saw the first twirls for next summer's collection. In a week's time I'll see the second twirls, and then the week after I'll see the third twirls, and the day after that we'll have technical fittings. So it's all quite regimented because, you know, I mean, yes, I'm a milliner and it's all about self-expression and all those things, but also I'm part of a team. So it's not all just about me, it's about the practice of people I work with.
Turning to that, so many incredible clients. You have a news.
Yeah, it's funny about working or having the idea of the muse. See, the thing is, I'm very good at changing my designs to suit people. So if I had one muse, I would make everything to suit her or him, and they would never be sort of moldable enough for everybody else as well. But of course, I mean, there's certain clients like Peter Montes or Andy Biaggi, my friend Ken who I was at college with, and you know, various people who absolutely inspire me. And yeah, but never one particular person. I mean, often she's an imaginary person, but she changes all the time.
And just moving forward now, what is your view on British fashion right now, and how instrumental is Central St Martin's to this?
It's amazing being here. You know, I work in Covent Garden, which is about 1 or 2 miles away. But it is, I mean, yes, you all feel privileged because you are here, but it is extraordinary because we are really in this room and in this building, in the eye of the storm. This is where it all starts. And the time that we spend here at college at Central St Martin's is incredibly valuable, and you never forget it. And I think the same is true today as it was when I was at college. I mean, that's it sounds like this huge St Martin's fan. It's not only what we think about it, but in the perception of the world, that's what they think as well.
Finally, Stephen, can you just describe 3 words from St Martin's now?
All is maybe different, but all is surprise, and I think you're appropriate for that.
Also, what's the highlight of your career so far?
Highlight of my career? Come here this evening. Highlight of my, I mean, I think getting an OBE, and what was fantastic was, you know, when you go to Buckingham Palace, this is the programme, and it says, you know, there's all these sort of people who've got things for, you know, they've worked with, you know, to pride children, or they've climbed Mount Everest, or they've done all sorts of different things which one feels is much more sort of noble pursuits than fashion. And you know, fashion blog, 3 or 4 lines of different people, and it's a first fashion. So actually, when I stood up and walked towards the throne and everything, and they said Stephen Jones OBE services to millinery, I was actually the first person to receive the services to millinery. So I think that was great, because it wasn't only for me, but it was for the people who work with me and all the sort of crazy people who work in fashion accessories.
Stephen, thank you so much. That was really fantastic. Just to finish, Fashion Communication Year 2 made a short film inspired by you and your...
Okay.